District. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. How are you on today?
Man, right in the middle of of all of this campaigning, and it's heating up. But it is election season.
Well, this is the year, 2023.
Yeah, it is, and it's a year where, with all the federal dollars and everything else, and everybody's trying to get their grasp on here, get as much as possible. I remember the last time you were on, you said some of those numbers are kind of fabricated because they have included some of the previous funding in there. But where do we stand now as far as the Department of Transportation?
Well, Paul, let me start by thanking you for having us on this morning. It's always a delight to come and be on your program. As far as funding for the Department of Transportation, I have to start with the individuals who appropriate the monies to us, and that is the legislature. I want to thank the legislative leadership, Speaker Gunn, as well as Lieutenant Governor Holzman and Governor Reeves. They gave us this year, with the IIJ money, which is the federal dollars that came down, told them about $986 million over the next 5 years. But the legislature put additional monies into our budget. And for the first time in 2022, we received a budget in excess of $1.4 billion. That's to be attributed to the leadership, again, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker, and the legislature who gave us that budget. Mm-hmm. And we have been able to do a lot of good things with the Department of Transportation as a result of that. Of course, we need more money. We don't want to in no way insinuate that we do not have enough, but we have been able to utilize the additional dollars and do some what we call capacity, as well as work with our cost and inflation that has increased with the $40 million we received there, and then $35 million in capacity. But also, legislation gave to us to give to the counties an additional $100 million for the ERBF program, the Emergency Road and Bridge. So once again, I want to give thanks to the legislation. We have a great team in the way of our leadership with Brad White as our CEO, and we've been working well together. But let me just say to you and to the audience that we, the commissioners, Commissioner King and Commissioner Caldwell, over the past 3 years, have kind of been in a maintenance mode. And what I mean by that, we've been in a position where we had to maintain the lane highways that we have, miles that we have on our highways, bridges, as well as other things. So we went into a maintenance mode for the past 3 years, and the lottery money, $80 million that came to us, we put it on our 2-lane highways that have not been paid in over 20 years. We have worked in dealing with our bridge situation that we have with many of the bridges on our state highways that need to be replaced. So as opposed to building additional capacity kinds of projects, we have been dealing with maintenance, but not only maintenance with our infrastructure. We had to do some maintenance with our staffing. We had about 3,000 employees, and we were losing those employees because of lack of pay or inadequate pay. And we had to do some maintenance in that regard. So working with the legislature and our leadership and Brad, we've been able to address that issue, and we are no longer bleeding like we used to bleed. So that's been good. We also had to maintain our contracts and services and deal with it over inflation. So maintenance has been very important to us, and then doing that while maintaining the accountability that we need to do to the public to make sure we were spending the dollars in the proper way. So maintenance has been a focus on ours, and going forward, we're going to begin to talk about building as opposed to maintenance.
What if and it's always a work in progress, and I wish the same thing would have happened in the last 15 or 20 years or longer than that, as far as all of the mayors and municipalities, as far as sewer and water lines. Just one of those things that cannot be neglected, because sooner or later they're going to catch up with you. So I understand what you're talking about. And again, I don't think people understand how important the lottery has been with that $80 million. Not only for the highway department, but extra money going, of course, above and beyond the $80 million as it tops over from there, going to education. But that money's been well used.
The lottery has been a jackpot for the state of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. I'm very fortunate to have been the legislator, the senator, because that's where that bill started on the Senate side in 2018 when Governor Bryan called a special session and Lieutenant Governor Tate Reed, now governor, put me in charge of working the legislation through the session. We were able to pass the lottery bill. None of us thought, you and I had a conversation about it during that time.
Yes.
None of us thought
Yes.
that it would come to $80 million. So when we said $80 million, you and I kind of laughed at it and said, well, you never get that. But,
education's not going to say anything if it's $80 million. Come on. And all of a sudden, boom. You know, the smartest person between all of us was Alice Clark.
Alice Clark, Representative Clark. And let me just say, she is retiring, but she has been advocating for the lottery forever. And we passed it. And when we passed it, we said $80 million would come to MDOT for infrastructure because we at that time was being attacked by the federal government for our bridges and closing many of those bridges. And we needed money for our infrastructure system, and we couldn't pass any other ways and means of doing it. So we went to the lottery. We said $80 million. And as you indicated, Paul, we have exceeded that $80 million every year since 2020. And the additional money is allocated to education. So both the Department of Transportation, infrastructure, and highways benefited from the lottery, but also the education system has benefited also.
Well, and talking with Brad White the last time he was on, you're absolutely right. The coordination now and him implementing the wishes and the directions of the transportation commissioners, it sounds like it's a well-oiled machine. What's Tom King? You know, he's contributed so much. He is retiring. Your thoughts there?
Well, you know, I had the opportunity to serve with Commissioner King in the Senate. And he was chairman of transportation, so we worked well together in that capacity. And then years ago, I moved over to be commissioner with him. We are both veterans. He has been a great leader. The Gulf Coast and the state of Mississippi, and especially the Department of Transportation, is going to miss him. Let me just say that he, along with our past commissioner, Commissioner Hall, who is no longer with us, but the commissioner put together a good system. And it's been one that accountability, and it's been great. We have not had any problems with our audits. We've always come out. We just didn't have enough money coming into the system. But they put together a good plan. So we want to miss Commissioner King for what he has done. But let me thank him publicly for his service, both as a veteran and as a senator and commissioner, because he has done a wonderful job in providing services to the citizens on the Gulf Coast and the Southern District.
I think most people will say ditto to that. I want to ask you, the visitor center, I saw a picture of the visitor center in Vicksburg. Man, that is well overdue, and it looks sharp, and going to ask you about that when we return, and a couple of other things. Transportation Commissioner, Central District Willie Simmons, who has some opposition from in the general election coming up. Southern District to take Tom King will be State Representative Charles Busby. Been on this program many times, of course, on transportation now in the House. And a guy named Stephen Brian Griffin, who's running as an independent, and they will face off in the general election. Back with more next. House and Senate gaveling at 10 o'clock this morning. On the phone with me, spending some time, is Willie Simmons, Transportation Commissioner, Central District. We were talking about the Welcome Center in Vicksburg, and I mean, we have several that really need to be redone. I saw some photos of that, or some drawings, and it looks like it's pretty snazzy.
Well, that is one of the things that we are doing, in addition to the highways and bridges and all other things that we talked about. Our visitor center, as you well know, is one of the first places many of our visitors and tourists who are coming into the state see.
Absolutely.
And that encourages them and motivate them to want to spend more time in the state. So we are replacing the one in Vicksburg. That's going to be the first one replaced. We're also going to do a replacement, one on the Gulf Coast area. We're looking at all of our visitor centers in order to enhance and improve them because their infrastructure has been in place now for many, many years, and it's time for them to be replaced and updated. Because, again, tourism is one of the major industries in the state of Mississippi, and we want to make sure we do our part as Department of Transportation in encouraging that. Speaking of the beautification and all, before we get into some other things I would like to say to the audience, many of your listeners right now are driving into inner city Jackson coming to work, and they are looking at trash all over the place. On tomorrow, we'll start a project to pick up the trash in the Jackson metro area. It's going to probably take us about 3 weeks to a month to do that at a cost of about an additional $100,000 that I'm going to have to pull that $100,000 out of our maintenance monies to do that. But our trash pickup over the state of Mississippi is about $3.2 million. Paul, that could be eliminated and put into maintenance and construction if we, the citizens, would not litter and put trash on our highways. I'm going to start that project tomorrow. And before we finish it, you will be seeing more trash out on our interstate system. So do what you can to encourage your listeners, to encourage their family, friends, and others to not litter our interstate and highway system because it looks so bad. In addition to that, in the Jackson metro area, we have a serious problem with our lights, where individuals are stealing the copper from the poles. And as a result of that, our interstate system is dark too often. Those are things that we shouldn't have to continue to reinvest money in because it is criminal to pull a copper, and it's criminal to even put trash out on the interstate system. So I would just like to encourage you to encourage your listeners to please cooperate with us.
Let me ask you this. You're hitting on a couple of things there that I think we have some purview, having a statewide audience here to help you out. And some of the reasons I haven't, and you got to know that litter to me is one of those things that aggravates the hell out of me because it says something about all of us as fellow Mississippians that when somebody does this, rolls their window down, throws stuff on the byways and highways. First of all, they're just uneducated, they're stupid, they're careless, they don't care about anything, and I understand all of that. I just don't mention it a lot because I don't think there's a lot of people in this audience that do that. But on the copper thing, most of that I'm sure happens overnight, right?
Well, I'm more sure it happens overnight. But we're not really sure when because...
Okay, but when you see somebody out there, they have to have lights doing this, I would imagine. And as you're passing by, I would think if you saw anything that even looks like that, and because I wouldn't think the maintenance people are going to be there at 2 o'clock in the morning or at 9 o'clock at night or something. So who would they call? The Highway Patrol? Or is there a number to call if they see something like that?
They can call the Jackson Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, or MHP.
Hell, they call the Jackson Police Department. It may be 2 days before they get out there.
Well, I'm just saying, but law enforcement is the group who should be enforcing that. We are to maintain it and establish it, but we aren't the enforcers. So I was responding to say that's who they should be making.
Well, I'll tell you what you do. If you guys get together at the next meeting and decide that there is something we need to look out for, and there's a cell phone number like the Highway Patrol or something that they could call, and you coordinate that, please let us know, and I'll be glad to mention that and do it quite frequently. As far as the litter, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I am embarrassed as a native-born Mississippian when I see all that trash out there. And I do have to ask you this. As far as the legislature is concerned, I'm a former member of the legislature, and we need to know this. How much of this comes from the back of trucks and commercial vehicles that's falling out as compared to what just the individuals are throwing out from the fast food places?
We are getting some of it that's falling off of trucks, but there is a penalty for that because those trucks are supposed to be covered, and we can have citation issued to them if there's a company that's doing it. So if you observe someone is coming off their trucks, please get that license plate number, and we will get back with you on some telephone numbers.
Please do. Please do. Maybe we need something like Litter Cam. Litter Cam would get the license tags numbers or something like that. I don't know, but it is frustrating because, number one, it's costing all of us, and as you said, that money could be put into maintenance and not spent on just picking up litter one way or the other. Well,
I think Mrs. Fordyce said something like, "I'm not your mother, so don't expect me to pick up your trash. Don't put your trash out." But
they keep doing it.
Let me say also, Paul, to you, once again, I talked in the beginning about we, the commissioners, going into a maintenance mode and all of the things that we have done in that regard. But we're now going toward...
We're going to have to continue the conversation later.
Okay.